McLaren is so far ahead that it could stop developing its 2025 car and focus on 2026. According to George Russell, narrator, in this video we're going to analyze what's behind Russell's surprising claim, why McLaren is now the team to beat, and what this means for the future of Formula One. Leave your opinion in the comments. Do you think McLaren can stay ahead all season? McLaren came to the Australian Grand Prix with high expectations after a solid preseason performance and a promising start to the year. However, what happened in Melbourne exceeded any predictions. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri dominated qualifying in a way that hadn't been seen for a long time, leaving Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes behind by a shocking margin. During qualifying, Norris set a time that was 0.485 seconds faster than Max Verstappen, securing pole position by a surprising margin. On a circuit like Albert Park, where gaps are often minimal due to its technical and fast layout, that gap represented a direct blow to the aspirations of Red Bull and the rest of the field. Oscar Piastri completed the front row for McLaren, demonstrating that the team had not only brought a fast car to Australia, but had developed a package that worked consistently across both cars. This result wasn't an isolated case of a perfect lap or a specific track condition, but rather confirmation that McLaren had a superior car in terms of aerodynamic balance, traction, and efficiency in high-speed corners. Max Verstappen, accustomed to dominating qualifying sessions in previous seasons, could only manage third place. His Red Bull, which in 2024 seemed unbeatable, showed limitations against the McLaren's pace. George Russell, driving the Mercedes, also expressed surprise by qualifying fourth, just 0.065 seconds behind Verstappen, making it clear that the battle at the top of the grid was shifting. Post-qualifying comments reflected the impact of this result. George Russell was the first to acknowledge that McLaren had a substantial advantage over the rest. According to the Mercedes driver, if a team starts the year with a 0.6 advantage over its rivals, it is virtually impossible for the others to make up for it through in-season development alone. This comment not only highlighted the Woking team's superiority in Australia but also sparked debate about the dominance they could exert throughout the championship. McLaren's performance wasn't limited to qualifying alone. In the long runs during practice, the team displayed solid race pace, with controlled tire degradation and straight-line speed that allowed them to easily defend against any attempts from their rivals. This combination of factors left Red Bull in an awkward position, forcing them to rethink their approach for the remainder of the season. The key to this exceptional performance lay in the development philosophy that McLaren adopted starting with the 2024 season. Unlike other teams that made constant changes to their cars, McLaren focused on stability. They kept the same floor since the 2024 Miami Grand Prix and made only minor adjustments to the edges, refining their concept without compromising the coherence of the aerodynamic package. While Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes introduced updates that in some cases didn't work as expected, McLaren consolidated its advantage with a car its drivers knew perfectly and that responded predictably on different types of circuits. Qualifying in Australia wasn't a fluke, but the consequence of a methodical and precise approach to car development. This result made it clear that McLaren is no longer just an occasional contender, but a real threat to Red Bull's dominance. With a clear lead in qualifying and strong race pace, the Woking-based team could be in a position to lead the championship and shift the balance of power in Formula One. McLaren's success in the 2025 season is neither a fluke nor a stroke of luck. Behind their impressive on-track performance is a carefully executed development strategy that has allowed them to maximize the potential of their car without falling into the pitfalls that have plagued other teams on the grid. While Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes have followed the trend of constantly updating their cars, McLaren has taken a different approach, focusing on stability and perfecting a concept that had already proven competitive. One of the key aspects that has set McLaren apart from its rivals is its decision to keep its floor design unchanged since the 2024 Miami Grand Prix. In modern Formula One, the car's floor is the most critical component in terms of downforce generation and overall car performance. Most teams typically introduce modifications to this area throughout the season with the intention of improving the car's balance and extracting more speed, but this process isn't always successful. McLaren opted for a different approach. Rather than making radical changes that could compromise the car's consistency, the team decided to work on small refinements around the same concept. They modified the edges of the floor, adjusted minor aerodynamic elements, and fine-tuned specific details without altering the car's fundamental structure. This approach allowed them to have a predictable and easy-to-develop car, while their rivals experimented with more aggressive changes that in some cases didn't generate the expected improvements. The results of this strategy were evident during the 2024 season, where McLaren demonstrated consistent performance on different types of circuits. While Red Bull started the year with a considerable lead but lost ground due to updates that didn't work as expected, McLaren maintained a progressive evolution without major setbacks. This approach not only allowed them to close the gap on Red Bull but also placed them in a prime position to start the 2025 season with a highly competitive car. Another key factor in McLaren's success has been its ability to interpret and exploit the technical regulations efficiently. While other teams have faced setup issues due to constant changes in their design philosophy, McLaren has maintained a clear and stable direction. This level of consistency has allowed both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to quickly adapt to the car each race weekend, optimizing performance without the need for significant adjustments. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella has repeatedly explained that in today's Formula One, improvements don't always translate into progress. In a category where aerodynamics and car balance are crucial, any modification that alters the car's stability can cause more problems than benefits. Under this philosophy, McLaren has built a car that is not only fast, but also reliable and easy to understand for its drivers and engineers. While other teams have struggled with managing tire degradation due to changes in downforce and weight distribution, McLaren has managed to maintain an optimal balance. This has been evident on long race runs, where the team has demonstrated one of the most consistent paces on the grid. The ability to maintain stable performance without excessive tire degradation has given them a strategic advantage in several races, allowing them to run their races with greater flexibility in terms of pit stop strategies. Another key aspect of McLaren's success has been stability within the works team. Unlike other teams that have undergone changes to their technical and engineering structure, McLaren has maintained a solid alignment in its key areas. This has allowed the team to follow a clear direction in car development without interruptions or changes in philosophy that could affect performance. The combination of these strategic decisions has propelled McLaren to the top in 2025. They have proven that a meticulous and well-planned approach can be more effective than simply pursuing constant updates. In an era where stability and consistency in car development can mean the difference between success and failure, McLaren has managed to establish itself as the benchmark on the grid. The question now is whether they can maintain this advantage throughout the season and how their rivals will respond to this new challenge. The lead McLaren has built in the 2025 season has led to one of the biggest questions in the paddock. Should they stop developing their current car and focus entirely on 2026? George Russell's statement is not just an observation on McLaren's competitiveness, but a profound analysis of the dynamics of development in Formula One and the strategic implications that this team could leverage. Recent history has shown that when a team starts a season with a significant lead, others rarely catch up through in-year development alone. Russell drew a clear parallel with what happened in 2024, when Red Bull started the year with a substantial advantage, but its attempts to improve the car not only failed to increase its dominance, but in some cases even harmed it. In contrast, McLaren has opted for a more conservative approach, keeping its floor concept largely unchanged since the 2024 Miami Grand Prix and opting for small refinements rather than radical changes. If McLaren has managed to establish a real advantage of 0.6 over its competitors, as Russell suggests, then it is unlikely that Red Bull, Ferrari, or Mercedes will find enough performance over the course of the year to reverse that gap. This puts McLaren in a prime position to make a key strategic decision: continue investing resources in developing the 2025 car to maximize its dominance, or redirect a significant portion of its budget and efforts to the 2026 project, when the new Formula One regulations will come into effect. The rule changes for 2026 are among the most radical in the championship's recent history. Not only will there be a new aerodynamic concept with the introduction of active aerodynamics, but the power unit will also change dramatically, with engines relying much more on electric power and less on internal combustion. This means that teams that start developing their 2026 car early will have a significant advantage when it comes to interpreting the rules and exploiting any potential loopholes in the technical regulations. Red Bull and Ferrari have already hinted that part of their focus is on 2026 development, although they are still devoting resources to the current season. However, McLaren, being in a dominant position, could afford to divert resources earlier than its competitors without compromising its performance in 2025. If they manage to manage this transition well, they could not only consolidate a title this year but also position themselves as favorites for the new era of Formula One. The challenge for McLaren is to find the perfect balance between continuing to optimize its current car and ensuring it doesn't fall behind in development for 2026. While its lead appears solid, Formula One is a sport where dynamics can change rapidly. Poor execution in terms of upgrades or reliability management could give its rivals an opportunity to close the gap. Another key factor in this equation is driver management. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have proven to be a highly competitive duo, but with McLaren dominating the grid, it will be crucial to avoid any internal conflicts that could compromise the team's stability. If the fight between the two drivers intensifies, team management will need to manage the situation precisely to prevent the rivalry from affecting on-track performance. McLaren faces a unique opportunity to consolidate its return to the top of Formula One. The decision of when and how to shift its focus to development in 2026 will be key to its immediate future. If they manage to execute this transition successfully, they will not only be able to win the 2025 championship, but could be in the best position to enter the next era of Formula One as the team to beat. McLaren has made a statement in the 2025 season with a car that is not only fast but also consistent across different conditions and circuits. Their lead at the start of the championship has been large enough for figures like George Russell to suggest they could afford to scale back their development and focus on the new era of Formula One that begins in 2026. Recent history has shown that when a team starts the season with a significant lead, it is often difficult for rivals to reduce it through development alone during the year. McLaren has found the perfect balance between stability and controlled evolution, avoiding the pitfalls that have plagued other teams like Red Bull, which started strong in 2024 but lost performance with updates that didn't work as expected. However, the Formula One season is long and full of variables that can alter the outlook. McLaren's internal management will be key to turning its superiority into a championship. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have proven to be a competitive duo, but in a situation where the team is fighting for the title, any tension between drivers could affect overall performance. McLaren has already experienced difficult situations with team orders in 2024 and will need to precisely manage the relationship between its drivers to avoid problems that could benefit its rivals. Pursued teams like Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes will not give up. Although McLaren appears to have found a solid advantage, the history of Formula One is full of surprising comebacks. A few key updates, an improvement in tire management, or a strategic error by McLaren could change the course of the championship. Furthermore, changes to the technical regulations and the natural evolution of the season can bring unexpected surprises. Beyond 2025, the big question is whether McLaren will be able to maintain its dominance when the new regulations come into effect in 2026. Formula One has shown in the past that teams that manage to get ahead in preparing for new regulations often have a significant advantage in the early years of a new era. Teams like Mercedes in 2014 and Braun GP in 2009 are clear examples of how a well-managed transition can usher in a period of absolute dominance. If McLaren decides to reduce its focus on development in 2025 and concentrate on 2026, it could secure a privileged position in the next era of Formula One. However, this strategy is not without risks. Abandoning the development of the current car too early could allow Red Bull, Ferrari, or Mercedes to find improvements and close the gap in the second half of the year, complicating the fight for the championship. The balance between securing the 2025 title and paving the way for 2026 will be McLaren's key challenge. If they manage this transition accurately, they could not only cement themselves as the best team of the moment, but also usher in a new era of dominance in Formula One.